Okay, welcome everyone. I think we'll get started in the interest of time. Welcome to this really exciting webinar that has taken months of planning, organized by the International Brain Research Organization, the ALBA Network, World Women in Neuroscience, and the Southern African Neuroscience Society, talk about collaboration in brain sciences. This webinar is entitled A Toolkit to Succeed in Neuroscience in Africa, and we're all looking forward to hearing some really great skills and tools and things that are coming from our panelists that we've got for you today. So before we get into the actual webinar, we would like to take an opportunity to introduce the organizations that have been behind the planning of this webinar for us. So that's IBRO-ALBA-WWN-SANS. And I'll start off with introducing the ALBA Network and IBRO in my capacity as a director at ALBA and as an executive member of the IBRO-ARC. So let's start off with the ALBA Network. We at the ALBA Network believe that diversity is a fundamental component of excellence, and that access to education, training, resources, mentoring, and work should be based on an individual's potential rather than what they look like or where they come from. So ALBA's mission, which was launched in 2019 in partnership with FENS and with IBRO and with SFN, is to ensure that we promote diversity, equity, and inclusivity in neurosciences. And our strategic plan is centered on empowering brain scientists so that they can be effective diversity, equity, and inclusivity advocates wherever they are, and allies. And then also we believe in sharing data and best practices to counter bias, which we know we all have, and to also fight against discrimination in neuroscience. We believe in recognizing outstanding contributions to science and diversity and highlighting success stories from all over the world. So we provide better visibility and professional development opportunities to neuroscientists from underrepresented groups. Some of the activities that we do at ALBA include awareness and advocacy. And this webinar is one of the activities that falls under this category. We have webinars, we have panel discussions that address region-specific diversity issues and hurdles that are faced by neuroscientists all over the globe. We also have visibility and recognition activities, which include establishing awards to recognize outstanding performance and contributions from people in underrepresented regions of the world. We also highlight their success stories and we aim to create role models. We believe in data sharing, as I said, so we're creating a database of scientists, neuroscientists, as a resource for speaker invitations, for prize nominations, etc. And then the last thing we do is we also have networking and mentoring activities. You have seen our booths and our tables at major conferences. We've got events, and we aim to create a mentoring framework to promote careers of underrepresented researchers in neuroscience. So as part of our declaration of our belief in equity, diversity, and inclusion, we actually have something called the ALBA Declaration, which is basically a document that recognizes or accepts that we are all biased, but what can we do about it? How do we create an inclusive workplace culture and a healthy environment that supports every neuroscientist wherever they're coming from to thrive? So this document is still there, and I would like to invite you all to sign the declaration if you haven't already. It's been a massive success. So far, we have had 218 organizational signatories and 594 individuals from 48 different countries. So please, if you haven't already done so, join the right side of history and stand with diversity, with equity, and with inclusivity. At this point, the question I'm thinking you're asking yourself is, how do I get involved with ALBA? That's a very good question. You can sign up to become a member of ALBA. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. There are no membership fees. And you can get access to a diverse network of neuroscientists across the globe. And you can be trained in DEI skills and advocacy. And there's so many other benefits. So sign the declaration, sign up to be a member, engage with us on our social media platforms, and get to be involved in doing the right thing in neuroscience. We are funded by a number of organizations whom I'd like to preliminarily thank for now before we get into the webinar. We've got FENS, IBRO, SFN, the Brain Prize, and Elsevier, and these are the people that make our activities as ALBA possible. And while we're talking about funding, I would like to also recognize and thank in a special way the International Brain Research Organization for sponsoring particularly this webinar that we have today. So IBRO, as you know it, is an organization that believes in bringing neuroscience to the world. If you haven't heard about IBRO, and especially if you're in Africa, please reach out to me as quickly as you can. So IBRO believes in equal, inclusive, and diverse access to global neuroscience, and it is made up of 5 regions, or divided into 5 regions globally. The region that is bringing this webinar to you today is the African Regional Committee, or the ARC. And if you look at their social media sites, you'll find a lot of opportunities for all career stages. There's career development opportunities such as travel grants, fellowships, parenthood grants, and a lot of different schools that aim to train and build capacity in African neuroscience. We also have events that we organize. We are there in sponsoring conferences, Brain Awareness Week activities, as well as different other types of meetings. And then lastly, we also believe in fair and inclusive publishing. So if you're in Africa, you're doing research in neuroscience and you want to publish your work, you can publish your work in our journal called Neuroscience, as well as IBRO Neuroscience Report. At this point, I would like to hand over to Professor Martha, who will speak to us about World Women in Neuroscience, one of the other partners in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So World Women in Neuroscience was founded as a committee of IBRO, but now we are an independent group. And it's really our aim is to improve career development, mentoring, and networking opportunities for women neuroscientists around the world. We host a series of mentoring circles. We also do a lot of seminars. And if you're interested, if I can have my next slide, these are some of the activities that we have right now. We have actually are starting to launch a mentoring program. It's going to be ready in a couple of days. So please, if you want to become either a mentor or a mentee, sign up to be part of this. It's going to be really terrific. We're going to be able to partner mentors and mentees across different career development questions or goals that the mentee may have, or even just as science to science mentoring, and peer mentoring is also going to be involved with that. You need to be a member to become part of these mentoring programs. So please go to our website, which is worldwomenneuro.org. You also are going to then receive a number, and once you get your membership number, you can actually be part of the mentoring program. At the same time, we're also launching a speakers bureau, and you can also access that through our mentoring World Women Neuro.org site. Can I have the next slide, please? And then these are all the different ways in which you can actually contact us. By email, the easiest way to do it is through world.women.in.neuroscience@gmail.com. But we can also be contacted through our website, and we have a variety of panels that you can actually access all our activities and all our information through it. That's it for me, Rach. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Martha. At this point, I will now want to go to the webinar for today that has brought us here. So it's entitled A Toolkit to Succeed in neuroscience in Africa. And I'm going to give a little bit of background. This is part of a series of webinars that the ALBA Network has been having, which focus on region-specific diversity issues. So if you remember, if you've been following from last year, we actually had quite a number of webinars in different regions of the world. And in Africa, we had one that was entitled, What It Takes to Succeed as a Neuroscientist in Africa. That was sometime in February of 2022. And in that, before that webinar, we had a needs assessment survey, and we identified certain issues that we tried to actually talk to in the first webinar. Some of these issues included funding, lack of mentoring and role models, lack of networking and space for exchange of ideas, etc. So this webinar today is a follow-up to that, and it is going to go deeper into these issues, explore paths to success, use life experiences, and draw from concrete problem-solving cases that are given by our panel today. Our panelists have rich experience in the field of neuroscience. We've got both young and old panelists that are coming from different parts of Africa and outside. So I'd like to first of all introduce my co-chair, Professor Martha Dávila-García, who is from the World Women in Neuroscience. You've just been listening to her, but she's from the Howard University College of Medicine in the US, and she will be co-chairing the session with me. My name is Rachael Dangarembizi. I'm from the University of Cape Town in South Africa. And one of our speakers is Dr. Lihet Kulu, and she's from the University of Stellenbosch in South Africa. And then we have Professor Dexter Tagwire, who is from the University of Zimbabwe in Zimbabwe. Then we have Professor Amira Zaki, who is from Alexandria University in Egypt. And then last but not least, we've got Professor Chino Orish, who is from the University of Port Harcourt in Nigeria. So there are four themes that we're going to be focusing on in today's webinar. Please keep those in mind. We're going to be talking about defining one's career path. That's the first theme. The second one is funding. Where do we get funding? Number three is setting up your own group. And this is an important one for early career scientists. And then number four is, how do we take care of ourselves while we're trying to develop as neuroscientists in the region? Self-care and self-management. All right, so those are the four themes. And at this point, I'd like to hand over to my co-chair, Martha, to get the discussion started.
Thank you, Rachael. So we're going to start with career path. And one of the challenges that most early career neuroscientists face is the choice of career paths. Every day, they have to deal with people telling them what to do or not to do. The main first question I have for you is, what options are available in Africa for one to pursue in neuroscience? And Dr. Saki?
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks, Professor Martha. I'm very honored to join this wonderful and special webinar speaking about specific and important criteria that we need to focus on during our trip as a neuroscientist. Concerning the career paths, we can say that most of us used, at least at our age, we used the traditional way. The traditional way was to look around and to see the available facilities and then decide to join such a research group or a research team for doing research based on the availability of the equipments, or just by reading and get attracted to specific specialty, like being interested in working on multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer, or pain management, etc. It wasn't done on basis, but during the current era with the huge influx and continuous influx of information and the development of a concept which relies on demand-based systems and having multidisciplinary options for skills and for activities, for those who are going to start up, they need first to look at the available resources around them, the institutes, the labs, the facilities, the research groups that are distinguished in a specific field. And second, they need to start working on their skills development based on the market assessment needs. Those are two very important criteria. If I talk about my personal experience in such a thing, it came, as I said, in a traditional way. I just finished my bachelor degree, then joined the master working on cancer cell biology. Then I traveled to USA working my PhD again on cancer cell biology. And I did shift the specialty to neuro research once I met a professor who was collaborating with Alexandria University. So it came by the traditional way. But those who are starting right now, they can make it more precise and more informative to the community, to do something that's valuable, has an outcome.
Right. Oh, thank you so much, Amira. Likhle, how would you define finding your career path? You know, what does it mean to define your career path?
Thank you, Martha. I think I would add on what Amira has already said. I think most of the times our career paths are more defined by the kind of supervisors we had when we were doing our PhDs, the kind of studies that we were involved in. And that kind of like exposes you to what can you potentially do moving forward. But I think, obviously, when you go and do a postdoc or you visit a lab, you may come back and start thinking differently, but also attending some of the conferences that Dr. Dangarembizi was mentioning, such as IBRO, SONA. You know, when you attend those conferences, you meet different people and your way of thinking starts changing. So you have a part where you're looking at your career based on what your supervisor influenced you with, but then you start formulating your own thoughts. And I actually think that one of the most important things that once you have decided that I want to maybe focus on multiple sclerosis, it's important to not chase everything else on the side when you define your career path. Sometimes we end up chasing different topics. And then at the end of the day, when you are applying for a professorship or you're applying for a faculty position or you're applying for funding, and the funders want to find out, who are you? What is your research niche focused on? They can't really tell because you are somewhere in multiple sclerosis because somebody was publishing and they needed somebody to add I don't know, maybe a paragraph in the write-up. And then you went on to Alzheimer's, and then you also dabbled into stress. You are thinking that your career is defined by the number of publications that you are giving. But in the meantime, what is most important, even if it takes longer, is for you to focus on one topic that you've chosen and then let yourself with other researchers that are distinguished, as Dr. Amira was saying, other people who are distinguished in that path, and focus on it, work on it until you have defined yourself and you are known for that particular research niche.
You're absolutely right. I think that sometimes it's actually very important that you see what kinds of things really trigger your excitement and go with that, but also thinking that research has to have a goal. And the goal, of course, is to cure some kind of a disorder, a disease. And so it's very important. You mentioned, Likhle, about mentors. And so my next question to you is, in your opinion, what is the most important characteristic of a good mentor? And how did you go about finding your mentors?
I think I was lucky, Martha, that I was exposed to people that were really relevant, that were really established in their careers, you included. But I think finding a mentor, I have two formal mentors. One is for leadership. So he is not necessarily somebody that is in my research niche, but I've admired his leadership skills and his ability to balance his life. Of course, we're going to be talking about balancing your life later on. So I've admired this and his humility and his ability to be available despite the fact that he is high up in the ranks of leadership. And my second mentor is a highly distinguished professor whom I believe she is in the same niche of my career path. So I find that having a mentor that is already experienced in the same field as you is important, because they're able to assist you when you are coming into different barriers. And they're able to also, I mean, if you are having your own personal problem, let me make an example. My lab, I have a lot of teaching, and then I have to do research. And I was starting out a lab in 2019, July, and then COVID and everything. And I was feeling extremely overwhelmed. And I spoke to my mentor, and she said, did you know that we have money for a postdoc? You can get a postdoc. This is what you need to do. And I hadn't even thought of getting a postdoc. I'm just making an example. Or maybe I would complain to her and say, I'm not publishing as much as I want to, because I feel as if I don't have enough collaboration. And she was able to say, oh no, Lisa, why don't I connect you with this person? We have this paper that we are writing. Do you want to collaborate? So I found that these were one of the tools that assisted me, or still is assisting me, that you connect yourself with somebody who is already specialized in the field and aligned with your topic, but also somebody who can just lead you as a leader if you aspire to become a leader.
Yeah. Amira, do you think that, so Leslie talked about two of her mentors. Do you think that that's too many or too few, or can you actually have a ton of different mentors?
Actually, in my opinion, shifting between mentors is not a good option for neuro researcher or neuroscientist, because when you get attached to a mentor or two during your career path, you get attached to different aspects about this mentor, how he or she thinks, how he direct, how he motivate, what's the vision of his lab or research line, how much he's connected to the social problems. His research relies on problems, demand, needs, or assessments. And this is very important to keep up with. Even if you shift or move to another group, you have to have a good relation with your previous mentor. This is, in my opinion, very important, because he will give you a reference letter, he will acknowledge your activities, or even help you in the future with some resources if you need. So shifting between a lot of mentors is not a good option, in my opinion, and it doesn't lead to a successful end product for a researcher. So because you are moving, you are changing the quality, the way of thinking, many issues every couple of years. This is not good.
Right. So you're talking about a research mentor. I was actually talking about different types of mentor. For example, some people would have mentors that are very close to what the research path you have. But what about, mentors that can actually help you in a time of, personal trouble, or peer mentors that can help you also navigate through certain barriers? I want to sort of see if any of the other panelists has any additional comments about that? The importance of mentors, different types of mentors.
Yeah, perhaps I can say a word or two, Martha.
Yes, sure, Dexter, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Lishle put it nicely, because if I listened to what she said she had two main mentors. One seems to be more aligned to her research career path in terms of the science, I guess. And then she mentioned the other one from a perspective of leadership. And in my opinion, as long as someone is really clear, about what their goal is, or what the mentorship relationship is supposed to produce, and if these mentorship relationships do not clash, so to speak, because I think, as Amira put it also correctly, if it is one who is, pushing you in a certain direction towards science, etc., and then you have maybe two different schools of thought with regards to a research path, then that might be confusing. But I think if the mentors are for several aspects, in your life, I think it should be possible, theoretically, to have different mentors mentoring you on different aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, Dexter. Thank you. So we're going to be moving now towards self-advocacy and what self-advocacy is.
All right, thank you. Before I go to self-advocacy, I would just like to make a comment, because I've got the mic, that mentors can also be she's. It's very easy for us to just want to say he, then. Mentors can also be she's. There are also powerful mentors out there that are female. All right, and then we're now going to go on to the next theme, which is self-advocacy. And my first question goes to Professor Dexter Taguire. Prof. Dexter, there's this thing of, if you get into an organization, you're a young person and suddenly you're sitting at a table with very big people. It's very intimidating. So my first question is, how do you develop the skills or the strength to be heard, when you join these big tables and these big discussions?
Thank you for that question, Rachael. Well, I guess it depends on the type of personality that a person has got, and the type of environment that you are relating in. From where I come from, when we have these big people who are senior, etc., there's a certain way that they expect you to relate with them before they can accept you into their circles. So I would say, at the first, when you first get into those circles, take time to learn. Don't say much, listen a lot, see who is who, and then slowly ease into it. Because normally what happens is sometimes you can short circuit your own promotion within this sphere. Because maybe you've got a brilliant idea, and it is a brilliant idea, we know it's a good idea, but because we know culturally, especially in our setting here in Africa, one, you cannot overtly correct one of the seniors when they say something in a certain direction. There's a certain way, a skill that you have to use to develop it. So maybe just to start the discussion, I would put it there, go in there, sit, learn as much as possible, and then slowly ease into it. Thanks.
Wow, that's very important. Learning your environment and knowing how to place yourself within the context before you can start being heard. So developing relationships. My next question goes to Dr. Amira. And Dr. Amira, one of the things that young people often feel is some kind of an imposter syndrome. You've done your PhD, you've been a postdoc, you've published well, and all of that. Suddenly you're sitting at these big tables, and whenever you say something, you second guess yourself, and you're not very sure whether you're not sure of yourself. How do we deal with this imposter syndrome? How do we develop skills, to believe in ourselves and our path?
Yes, thanks, Rachel. As Dexter said, it's something you can build gradually. As a young researcher, you will get in touch with senior researchers normally during lab meetings, during scientific meetings at the level of the institute, during conferences, etc. So you will develop something on your own based on your way of learning. Some people, they try to learn, as Dexter said, just watch, observe, listen, go into a little discussion to know, to understand, and this will develop something inside you. After you get your degree, you feel proud of yourself, of course, especially if you do it in a good lab and you investigated new signaling pathway. And of course, as juniors, they feel always enthusiastic, and even when they speak up, they speak with enthusiasm, and I did so and so, I distinguish myself in this and this. This is, of course, very normal, and this is very good to present yourself. How can you promote yourself without giving the others the feeling that you are bragging? It's not difficult at all. How? You just state how did you learn and how did you succeed, rather than stating how you are powerful when it comes to compare to the rest of the group. For instance, if you say, okay, when you are in a discussion, I got my PhD in this lab, and during my work, I investigated the signaling pathways related to such disease, which gave me very good skills and expertise in such area. And then I had a very good outcome, which is a paper publication or attending meeting or etc., or even application for a grant, any kind of achievement. This will present you very well. But if you say, during my PhD, I have learned all the techniques faster than my colleagues, I was wonderful, I was magnificent, this will give people who doesn't know you feeling that you are bragging. So just focus on your path to achieve the success rather than talking about personal skills to achieve such a end product or outcome or whatever. And you need to represent yourself and to be proud of yourself, of course, and to be happy with that. It's not a problem.
True. Thank you so much, Amira. She's spoken about something very important. You know, we need self-promotion for us to actually make it. We need to market our skills. We need to profile ourselves, but at the same time, we need to make sure it's in a way that is not offensive to potential enablers or potential supporters or mentors. All right, my next question, almost related to this actually, Professor Taguire, is how do I create a strong profile as a neuroscientist? How do I brand myself so that people will know that Rachael Dangarembizi is about A, B, C, D, E, just as we know so many scientists from all over the world? Can I do that as well as an African scientist?
Yes, thank you for that, Rachael. I think I would like to agree and take it up from what Amira was saying, because I think your questions are very well structured, you know, flowing one into the other. So I think one thing which the internet has done for us is to almost put everyone at the same level throughout the world. Of course, there are issues of data, you know, maybe slower internet speeds, but really on the whole, there's no excuse to say I am from an African setting or I'm from wherever else, because we're on the same level. And in my opinion, this is a tool that we can actually use to deliberately shape or promote ourselves and our skills, and present ourselves in a certain way that we want people to view us. So, for example, if my interests are in, Alzheimer's disease, perhaps coming from potential drugs coming from natural products, then I should have a LinkedIn account. And if somebody goes onto that LinkedIn account, they're not seeing some silly jokes on whatever else, but they're seeing things which are related to the area which I want to profile or put out there. So if there's an interesting paper which is coming out based on my area, I can just put it up there and make a comment. Fascinating results from a group from A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And when I continue doing that, what then happens is that then people start to know me for a certain set of skills or a certain way of doing things, or a certain research pathway. So I mean, we've got LinkedIn these days. We've got Twitter, which we can actually use quite powerfully and effectively. I would even dare say we've got things like Instagram. You could have, pictures of different plants or whatever else that people can also just relate to. So at the moment, in my opinion, we have social media, to our advantage. And then also, like, I think it was Lihle who said it earlier, we stick to one, it might be a broad area, but then if I'm at a conference, they know that when Dexter is coming, he's probably going to be talking about poisons or whatever else. And then when that happens over and over and over and over and over again, we then start to be known, to promote ourselves and our skills in a certain particular area.
Wow, thank you, Prof. We need to take advantage of social media, but also caring what we put out there, because it can injure us in our careers. And the second thing is we need to be known for something. And if we do it well enough, we will eventually create a profile for ourselves. Okay, I will hand over now to Martha, who will take us through the next theme.
Yes, so thank you, Rachel. We're going to talk about funding now. And one of the major skills one is required to succeed in as a neuroscientist is actually getting funding for our research. In Africa, perhaps a little more than in other parts of the globe. So funding is so important. How do we get funding? Where should we look for funding? Where are the opportunities for funding? Dr. Amira Saki.
Okay, funding, the critical issue, the most important issue to work on. For funding, you need also to check the level of funding you required for the stage you are in. As a master or PhD student, you can look for funding to join a conference or meeting, or travel for a short internship, or to get your full degree outside of your home institution, or to get small fund to support your research, fundamental chemicals and equipments. This can be done nowadays easily. Nowadays, things are different and there is a lot of opportunities. And for second level of progress, after you finish your PhD and become junior researcher, just like a postdoc, still postdoc, you need to think of establishing a lab. So to establish a lab, you need to look for bigger funding. Personally, I started applying for funding, of course, for my PhD study. I traveled to USA, but it was through my home institution. It was a travel grant through the home institution, paid by the institution to USA. When I came back, I struggled for a while and then decided to start preparing an applications. The first fund I got was with the total amount of around $2,500, which wasn't that much big, but still it helped me a lot because I learned how to write an application, how to manage the money I got, and I've learned many skills out of that. And also to apply for this, I had to submit different applications. Till now, since 2009, I didn't get more than 50% out of the application I submitted for funding, which is normal for me for the moment. At the beginning, I was feeling very angry, depressed, sad, oh, funding is very difficult. But nowadays, I receive the emails of, unfortunately, we cannot finance your project, with a smile, saying, okay, no problem, let me go to the next step and submit the application again. So funding needs you to be convenient that, first of all, to check for the type of fund you are looking for the moment, for the stage, and second, to accept the result and to improve your application, because granting money relies on many aspects rather than the quality of the research proposal. Sometimes geographical distribution, male to female ratio, other issues that are not insulting you or offending you. So take it easy, but apply for fund. At national level, there is a lot of agencies that gives funding for young researchers. And the second or third level, you go for international one after going to multinational level. This is my opinion.
Thank you. So my second question is so there's funding bodies that require pilot data and certain levels of experience or expertise. How do you gather this pilot data? When you are starting to look for funding and you don't have the funds in your institution or within your laboratory, how do you go about trying to find this pilot data? And you talk about your US experience, and I'm sure that there's others that have actually gone to Europe and elsewhere. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Lichle, you has also, gone to different places to gather your data. So can you tell us?
To go back to Amira's question, I think like getting a pilot data, you could probably collaborate with somebody that already has funding so that you can answer a basic question and use your findings from answering that basic question to then apply for maybe another smaller grant like an IBRO, and then from there you can apply for something bigger. And I also think that, just going back to what Amira was saying about funding, I think a lot of us also may also make the mistake of not aligning yourself to the funder's criteria. You know, the funder has certain criteria that he says, this is the kind of criteria we have. Even if you have a motivational letter that worked for a previous funding or something else where you promoted yourself a certain way, it's so important to align yourself with the trying to find the correct word, but you need to read who your funder is. What do they want? What is important for them? Look at what you have, package it in such a way that it aligns with the funder's mindset. And I think it's also important to actually assess, you know, we also have a habit of, because applying for funding is such a lot of work, you take a funding proposal that worked for a certain funder, and you take it exactly as is, and you send it to the next funder. I think this is another thing that I think this is where we lose it, where you just want one size to fit all, instead of reading what the funder wants, aligning yourself with them, with their national requirements, and then packaging everything according to the funding that you are applying for. And then, of course, also, if you don't have funding, you can always work with somebody that has it and collaborate with them and pull that data and make it your preliminary data, and then use it as a way of applying for funding.
So we need to write grants. Dexter, how do you get the skills to write grants?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I think the first point is what we've been stressing, I think, from the outset, the issue of mentorship. If you've got a good mentor who has written grants before, and they're really willing to hold your hand and take you through, that's perhaps the model, I would say, a good way of going about it. But it is possible that perhaps, you know, you're in an institution where there might not be so many mentors around. Although these days, of course, with electronic media, I think you can get a mentor from basically anywhere in the world if you avail yourself. So apart from mentorship, I think there are several, you know, grant writing workshops under different organizations and associations, be it IBRO, whatever else. And the scientists just has to avail themselves and keep their eye and their ear, on the screen and their ear to hear, you know, what potential opportunities are there with regards to grantsmanship, or, you know, how to develop and write successful grants. But also, you know, there's also the issue of peer-to-peer mentorship, which is something which perhaps, you know, when you talk of mentors, ordinarily we think of someone who's, you know, really been out there in the front. But there are some peers perhaps who, for some reason, are a bit more skilled, and they've actually had the opportunity to write some grants, and you can actually work together in some form of a partnership and actually start to learn, you know, how to do it. So I'd say, in a nutshell, those are the quick thoughts that come to mind with regards to how to then develop your skills in writing successful grants. Oh, and then the last thing is, I think Amira said it, you must be, or was it lately, you must be willing and able to absorb failure. You know, that you sent a grant, and if it comes negative, we don't cry, you know, and say, oh, mama, what am I gonna do? We get ourselves up, we dust ourselves up, and we do it over and over and over and over again as we increase and improve our skills. I think those are my thoughts. Thanks.
So resilience, very important skill, resilience. Sheena, what do you think there would be? Is there any other skills you think one needs other than resilience for to get, you know, into the funding opportunities?
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm very, very sorry. I've been having a epileptic network on and off and
That's
all that.
okay.
So I've been cutting off. I think in funding, we need to be proactive. When I just hope I'm following. Be proactive. We'll take action. Peradventure, I remember vividly my first grant I got, IBRO advocacy grant. It was not a complete grant. I just drafted something, sent the first one, it didn't click. Then the second one, I just push it like that. So proactivity is very, very important. And also it's very, very important to ask for feedback. Peradventure will send it out and it doesn't work. Say, what did I do wrong? You might get a feedback that will help you. Or we'll look for a mentor, folks that have done it. I'm working on ISN grant. There are this young guy, this young chap. I don't want to mention his name. Peradventure is on the platform. I call him my mentor. So we have to have the teachable spirit. It doesn't matter whether you are older or younger and all that. You learn from those who have succeeded. So I think that's one of those things. We have to be resilient and see the beauty behind that failure. That for every success, there's gonna be a failure. So that you fail doesn't mean that you continue to fail. So be resilient, have a spirit of tenacity, and be proactive, and push it, and something will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, China. So I think that, you're all absolutely right. Collaborations are definitely one way in which you can actually get started with funding, collaborating with people that can help you with your pilot data. Also be resourceful, be very proactive about it. Make sure that you read all of the instructions carefully. Many people lose their grants because they don't read the instructions carefully. And more than anything, just have resilience and keep on doing it, because it really is a very competitive thing to have funding. But once you get it, it actually becomes a lot easier. My next question is about capacity building. What other types of people should we seek to be part of our network? So collaborators was one of them. Who else do we need, Dexter?
Yeah, thank you for that. So my answer is going to be, okay. I think you need anyone who has passion, because you see, in our work as scientists, there are times we get to where the things which are happening around us tend to want to pull us down. And even if within your network, even if it's someone perhaps, I don't know, in the social sciences or wherever else, but somebody who's got this passion that they always radiate around them, it does. Especially, when things are looking a bit down and dark. And then also, I think in your network, it's good to then have, whether it's within your mainstream or main area of research, to have people who have got a clear focus, a clear vision, and a clear agenda. And what that does for you is that it also, in a way, in quotes, rubs off onto you, because you're having discussions and someone is telling you, what, by the end of the year, what I'm thinking is I want to purchase equipment ABCD, or I want to do ABCD. If you had started to slacken yourself, just having someone like that around your network does something to you in terms of giving you the impetus to then want to push forward. So I'd say for me, those two are the ones that immediately jump out in the front. Thanks.
Would you add anything to that, Amira? Do you, in your view, what capacity building is, and what else do you need? What kind of people do you need to be surrounded with?
Yes, actually, Dexter covered most of the items or the components that build up a successful team, but still we can just add a little bit something that we need to build up our collaboration based on the national institution expertise in addition to international ones. So I have to have collaborators from my own institution, my own country, from other universities, and then go for outside collaboration. Why? Because if in the future I would like to apply for an international funding, project, I need to have a strong team from my local country. And this could be only represented when we are a team with a multidisciplinary options and choices. So we can give to the partner many resources from our own country. We are a good representative of our own country.
Very good. And so that actually leads us to the next topic, which is to setting up, your own group and how do you manage a lab? I'm going to let Rachael ask those questions.
Thank you so much, Martha, and thank you to the panelists for such a rich discussion. I am learning a lot. I would like to speak to, one of the challenges that we have here in Africa. So we've just been talking about funding and how difficult it is for us to get funding. But for me to be able to get funding, I need to demonstrate that I've got a research team in Africa. That's what most of the international grants actually want from you. So they want a research team. You've got to show that it's a competent one. You've got to show pilot data. On the question of setting up your own group, what skill set do you need? Because that is not trained during our PhD training. I'm just focusing on a research question. I write my thesis, I submit, that's it. But the next thing I get a job, I'm supposed to set up a lab. What skill set do I need to set up that lab other than just writing papers and articles and grants? And I would like to ask that question to Lihle.
Thank you, Rachael. Actually, I think setting up a lab is obviously not easy, especially when you're going to set it up from scratch. So I think the first thing would be obviously identifying space in your university or whichever institution you work with. I think if you live in South Africa, you are most likely to be lucky because you may be in a university that already has equipment, and you may already, like Stellenbosch University has an equipment fund of over a couple of millions every year where you can apply for equipment. So if I use myself as an example and using that example for Africa, it would be an unfair example because not every institution in Africa has these millions to say, what do you want this year? It's like a Father Christmas. Oh, I want this, I want that. And they buy it for you. So I've been very lucky to have that. But I think if you are starting from scratch and actually your lab doesn't have anything, if for example, you can collaborate, find another lab in a vicinity of your country or the city where you live, and then say, okay, I know that University of Zambia, has UZ, has this and this and that while I'm in Copperbelt. So I might not have my own equipment in Copperbelt. I will have students. I will assist them to write a proposal, and I'm going to work with somebody at the University of Zambia where I know they have animal facility, where I know they have the equipment I need. So I will use my funding to buy the reagents and then go to that university and have my students learn the technique, carry out part of the technique. So it's a strong collaboration until you've obviously advanced enough to apply for funding that is big enough to say it's just for equipment. And there's also other fundings that are actually just for equipment. So I know IBRO has a return home funding where you can apply for equipment, but I also think being part of networks such as WWN, such as IBRO, you get to know people who are in strong institutions where you can say, okay, do you guys have this equipment that maybe somebody doesn't use? And maybe it can be donated to us, and all you have to do is find money for that equipment to be shipped. So I think it's also just thinking out of the box, and then just collaborating with people that already have existing equipment while you are building yourself up. And I also think, obviously, if you have money, you can also send your samples overseas for analysis.
Thank you so much, Leslie. That's very true and very important. Leveraging the equipment that is in the region, not necessarily in your own lab, is a very clever way of going ahead. And also, taking equipment that is no longer being used by others. It's not a hand-me-down. It's usually actually functional equipment and people have upgraded, and you can take it and still use it for years. And I'd like China to speak to this. Sometimes you open a lab, you've got old equipment, and you've got to make it work. I know that you have a powerful story of how you developed an old piece of equipment and made it work and pushed work that way. China, would you want to share that with us?
Yeah, thank you so much for such opportunity. One of the attributes I employ here is being resourceful. You know, as I know most of my lectures, and you know, I was able to participate in brain perfusion fixation using sophisticated equipment in the United States of America. But when you come back to Africa, you have nothing to fly with. So we had a drip giving set, but the syringe was very, very tiny. So I needed to thought, this was outside the box. Without the box, I won't say outside the box. So we're able to use this big needle they use for embalming, and we achieved a fantastic work. And also, most of the equipment like behavioral study, actually in my university we don't have anything. Or constructed some behavioral equipment, you go online and you see the measurement and all that. There's some that in process now. So these are the things we are doing for now, although believing that maybe in near future we might have some institution that will donate, because apart from trend that donated a 3D printer for us, I've tried most of the time, so individuals and some bodies to get equipment, but it's quite difficult. But eventually they send it to your country, the money to clear it can be crazy. So these are the challenges. So one of the things is just being resourceful, and trying to, sometimes we make use of our money, self-sacrifice. You need to, add value to yourself. There's equipment I bought recently from my money, so I'm trying to set some small lab and all that. So it's quite, something that you do in order to navigate into your career. In order to be successful, you need to be, add some values and also be resourceful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, China. Thank you for raising that important point of being resourceful. And one of the things that you just reminded me of is actually the importance of having technical skills in dealing with these day-to-day lab issues. In Africa, it's not every lab that has got a lab technician that can be dealing with lab technical issues. In some instances, you're going to have to fix the cable yourself, so how have you guys been doing it? I'm talking to the panelists. What experiences have you got? What can you share with us in terms of technical skills that are required while you're running your lab?
Okay, good question. Actually, we don't have technicians, we have a lab scientist. So he's a lab scientist, that most of the time he does the work of trying to, pick the equipment together, sort few things out, as well as students. Some occasions we need to go outside the university to look for some person that will tidy up. But in my university, actually, we don't have fantastic equipment. We are still building up, so it doesn't even require looking for technician and all that. But there's no technician on ground. In our university, we make use of lab science, we make use of students, maybe postgraduate students that maybe we bought equipment in my department, they assemble it with the lab technologies and all that. So that's the way forward in my institution. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chena. Dexter, do you want to speak to these technical issues? How are you managing in Zimbabwe? Do you have a technician that specifically fixes stuff for you when they go down, or do you have to draw your sleeves up and sometimes do the work yourself?
Thank you for that question. So most of the research that we do, maybe just going a bit back and talking about the whole concept of setting up a lab, as I answer this thing on your question on a technician. So the concept of a lab in the African setting, I think it was Rachael who mentioned the issue of collaboration. The lab in the African setting is not one place where you find everything. And if you were to be really practical, that's sort of the type of mentality that you have to start off with, and then perhaps as resources and finances come, you can start to build up. So what normally happens is that I'm from the School of Pharmacy, and the School of Pharmacy has got technicians whose role and responsibility is largely for the students, be it undergrad largely and postgrad grudgingly. So one of the things that you then have to do is then we have to work with those. But then you see, working with them now, it might mean that you might need to go an extra step. I think China talked about sacrifice. It means perhaps incentivizing them out of your own pocket to spend a bit of time looking at things which are to do with your own research. So that's the first thing. So the way that they would work, it's not like you have, a technician who's responsible for this particular lab. This one is responsible for the whole department, for the running of a degree program. And then for other things, you have to fold your sleeves and do it yourself. And now, if I am mentoring students, perhaps masters, PhDs, they have to also learn that there's no one who's going to wash your glassware for you, because these people are employed to wash glassware for undergrad students after they do their own practicals. So those are the peculiarities in our own settings. And then you also have to learn some basic things. The spectrophotometer is not working too well. Maybe it's the fuse. You open up, you check if the fuse is working. So it is a combination of both. But really saying that there's someone who would be dedicated, except if you've got a big grant and you've been in the field for a while. For example, I have an LCMS. I had an LCMS scientist who, because we're not paying him too well, has since left us, but I did have one at some point in time. So so it's the way that you just have to think outside the box and think, what is it that I have to do in order for me to get results? Because if you sit back and you expect things to come on a table in front of you, you will never, ever progress. But it is doable. It is possible, I think. So that's my thinking.
Thank you so much, Dexter. If you wait for things to line up for you perfectly before you can start doing your research, chances are high that you're not going to be able to do that research. That's a very nice take-home point. You mentioned something about training students, especially postgrads, and it just sparked a question in me, which any of the panelists can answer. Should we be training our students to be technicians, or should we be training them to be scientists? And where do we draw the line? Are they just supposed to be able to do technical things and move on and submit? Or are they supposed to think like scientists? Somebody to please address that from their experiences or from what they think.
Can I take it?
All right, we'll have Amira then.
I think they can do both. They can do both. African is not like over there, so we need to struggle. If you start waiting for technician, you might not achieve something. And most of our students they have the skill, so they can be trained as a scientist as well as a technician. When you have a problem with your instruments, anyone that is skilled can sort it out. You don't need to wait for the technician where you spend money, because the money is not there. A student can sort the thing out. You just give a small money. But if you call a technician, qualified technician, he or she gives you bill, and you are stuck. You won't do anything. So you won't progress and you won't be successful. So they can be trained as both. Thank you.
Okay, as both technicians and scientists. Thank you, Chena. Amira, you are going to say something, and then after you, Dexter.
Okay. Actually, concerning the technician duties, we need to first define what technician duties according to the size of the lab. How big is the lab? What kind of equipments are there? What kind of experiments are running in the lab? Some labs, they do need a technician with a very basic skills to run the basic items in the lab. So technician here could be an assistant in running the experiments, run the experiment and give me results. And this happened in many big labs in Europe and USA. So technician is not only for managing the problems happen with the equipments. So first of all, you need to define the duties of the technician of your lab. And then you need to read the skills that present in the research team. and then you need to assign some of them with some activities, but not with overloading activities that interfere with their main objective or main activities or work in the lab. For instance, in my lab, I have like a cell culture unit, and I have basic equipment for molecular biology investigation. When I have a group of students, of course, at certain time of point, I hired a technician, and the role of the technician was limited to some items because he wasn't that much qualified with the given requirements based on the salary I could provide, of course, to him. I cannot hire well-qualified one because I give big salary to it, which is not feasible for me at that time. And then I tried to train the research teams to take some responsibilities and charges. For instance, if I have some administrative paperwork, I read the skills of one of the students that she can write very well. So I assign this activity to her, and I give her the activity of creating database for microRNA list, for antibodies, for etc. So this is one. The other is responsible for taking care of the culture unit while she is using the room. So students who are doing research in vitro in cell culture, taking care of the cell culture unit. Other responsible for taking care of the major equipments, but with a limited extent, because if we are speaking about gel electrophoresis units with the cooling centrifuge, with the PCR machine, what all you can do is just to handle it in a clean and nice way. But for the student, he cannot fix the machine if something happened. In parallel, I have some like minor connections and contracts with specialized companies that doesn't take too many charges to come and follow up the important equipments. This is how I manage it in my lab.
Wow. Thank you so much, Amira, for that. Now I'll hand over to Martha, who will take us through an important question of self-care and managing ourselves. Martha?
Yes, I think that a lot of times we think of ourselves as being a very busybodies. I mean, we as scientists, we have to deal with a lot of things, setting up labs, making sure that we train our students, making sure that we are writing our papers, making sure that we're writing our grants for funding. And then we have to think about ourselves as well. And that is something that I think is very, very important, taking care of one's mental health. As well as general health. And so my question to the panelists, I'm going to start with Sheena, is how do you take care of your mental health while navigating through all of these demands that you have as a neuroscientist?
Thank you so much. That's a very important question. You can agree with me that without a sound mental health, we cannot function even in our home, even in offices, and then even as an administrator. So I'm going to talk from practical example. What I actually do is that I eat right, healthy living, healthy ritual. I eat right. What do I mean by eat right? I take a lot of fruits and vegetables. You agree with me that stress is a silent killer. If we remember the pathophysiology of stress, oxidative stress, how it destroys everything in the body, the brain, the liver, all the organs. So one thing we fail to appreciate is that our diet plays a great role in maintaining our mental stability. It has helped me a lot to keep stable. Then also exercise is very, very important. Daily exercise. You don't need to go to gym. I do every morning. When I wake up, I will just jump up to 100 times. That's my exercise, and it keeps me fit. So apart from the exercise, also sound sleep to 6 to 8 hours. And also, we also need to take some supplements. From practical example, if not, you collapse. Because I have some stories of some women coming to me, Gina, I have this migraine, I have this and all that. So I advise them, give them, okay, take this supplement, do like this and all that, and they'll be stable. So these are the practical things. And one of our initiatives in Women in Neuroscience Nigeria, we'll talk about Women Health Initiative, where we'll give health talk, talk on stress and how to eat right. So if every woman comes to eat right, we're going to do much. Because once we are sick, once you are mentally, you are disorganized, the work can be so demanding. It's like you can just imagine yourself, you have the children, you are trying to fix the children, you're trying to fix your office, you're trying to fix the lab, you have the grant to put on, and you are not mentally stable, you are not physically stable. What do? You're going to deliver. So the first and foremost thing is to eat right. We need to go back to the garden. We need to speak the language of nature to every woman. Run a seminar on nature. How, fruits and vegetables, load ourselves with antioxidant supplements, and we see, you do a lot of work without being, going down. I remember when I was HOD, I used to, in my office, I take granola. Sorry, I'm taking us so long. Granola, and they said, it does this thing. I take fruits and vegetables, and I do jogging, and I'm okay. So first and foremost thing, eat right, exercise, take enough sleep, be positive about life. In every place you see some toxic and toxic human being, you need to be positive attitude. The more you think about negative things, the more the thing where you down, you're emotionally down, you are depressed and all that. And don't remember the God-brain has this connection, our God speaks to our brain. So whatever we eat, whatever we take inside the stomach and the God talks to the brain. So the summary is, let's go back to the garden where life resides, so that will be successful. Thank you so much. Let me not
Thank you, Gina. So now I'm going to ask both the female and the male perspective on this. So Lichle, what kind of support group do you actually have to, for your mental health? I'm going to ask Dexter the same question.
I think personally, Martha, I have my own personal support, right? But I also think it's very important to have friends, maybe a healthy dose of friends, maybe two. As you grow older, you lose friends because you are busy, because of different reasons. But even if you just have two people that you can chat with, go out with, share your news with, the element of family, I also think is very important. And I think just spirituality or meditation or, China spoke about rest. Mindfulness is coming up very high as one of the ways of actually just bringing yourself back into a good space. But I also want to, at a personal level of looking after yourself for my own mental health, I strongly believe in, I'm a big advocate of therapy. I think therapy is really good. Finding a therapist, if you can afford one. But there's also free therapists in universities. If you are in university or some companies, they do offer free therapy. I found that very effective. And I also think it's important to say no. Just look at what are all these things that are keeping you busy. You are in this society, you are serving in this committee, you are part of that group from your local church, you are doing this. There's only one of you, and trying to serve in all of these places. And you ask yourself, how are these things aligned with my long-term goal for my life? How are they aligned with my purpose? How are they aligned with my mental health? Most of the times you will find that half of the things you are engaged in really are just drawing your energy. Everybody wants to speak. You must speak here, speak there. There's no money for it. It's not aligned to your work. There's nothing to bring home about it. Just leave it. Leave it. Take your time back and put it with your friends, with your family, with your work, and with your own sacred space. Yeah, that's my little toolkit.
Yeah, we tend to say yes, and then we feel like we're totally stretched out and we cannot do everything, and we don't do it right. When we're so stretched out. Dexter, what do you think about it? Do you have a support group for your mental health?
Thank you for that, Martha. So the quick answer is yes. I have family, my two beautiful daughters, and my beautiful wife as well. I have a church family as well, where I go. I also engage in some sport, so that helps to keep my mind clear. And then I have to intentionally put on my diary that we go out for lunch with a long-time friend of mine, because I noticed that if I don't do that, I end up becoming too busy. But then before I keep quiet just in a minute, I think what Lichle has just talked about is extremely important, especially when you're coming up as a young scientist. You're bright, you're a neuroscientist, you're doing things, you've got lots of potential. And the tendency in our setting, because of, there might not be, the stuff might be limited, it might be lean. Two things happen. It's either one, you are put into each and every committee. Why? Because they've seen that you're a bright person, and you can actually assist them in one way or the other. Or the second thing is that they quickly want to put you into a position of departmental leadership. Now, those two things can really have a strain on your mental health. Number one, just being thrust into all committees. I think she said it well. I said we should just learn to say no to some other things. Yes, to start with, you might feel as though, you are right, therefore they like you for that. Then you might want to just be everywhere, but in the end, it will kill you. And also, don't be quickly going to be a chairman. First build your research career, get some money, build a good lab, then you can go into those positions. So that's what I just wanted to stress for the young scientists out there.
Thank you, Dexter. So one of my last questions, and that is going to be for any of you, is really how do you achieve a good life-work balance? I think that especially women, we tend to be multitasking all the time. In some communities, you actually are supposed to be the one, taking care of the children, the cooking, and the this and the that. I hope that that's, soon going to go away. But still, we do a lot of the groundwork in the houses. How do you achieve this, good life-work balance? Lihle?
I think China is best on that one. Because I have an 18-year-old son, so I can't really say I'm still trying to balance anything. Yeah.
Okay. As I earlier said, it's still in the same line. The first and foremost thing is you must live a healthy lifestyle, healthy ritual, because there's no way you can marry together, your work life and family life if you're not healthy. So the first and foremost thing is that you must be healthy. And how do you achieve that? You must eat the right thing. To build up your immune system, to build up the antioxidant in your, that will fight the free radicals. Then also have enough sleep, exercise, and also sometimes take some time out for recreation. You mustn't be work, or switch out your phone. It might not be easy. I mean, if you are married, just take your husband somewhere 2 days or 3 days. I mean, you can have a good time. And you play with your kids. These are the things. Then time management. I don't know, my system is running down. We're in Nigeria.
Yeah, no, time, definitely.
So one other thing is that time management is very, very important. Most of the time we'll have a lot to do, and sometimes you might have meeting. You mustn't travel for that meeting. Do online meeting. Do it sharp. Don't waste so much time. Meeting lasts for 2 hours and all that. And also do a kind of schedule, prioritize your goals. Have a do list schedule. I have a note where I list all I want to do. Maybe on Tuesday, I want to do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Within this, you set a time limit. If I'm not able to achieve that, I carry it over. So when you do this, it helps you a lot to manage, the home and all that. Set boundaries too. There are certain things that you need to say no. There are some speaking, this thing that will come to me, China, do this. It can be crazy. You need to say no so that you will not die before your time. And eat right. If you don't eat right, you will die before your time. We must eat right. Yep. We must live our life in garden. I do speak this language. I preach it every time I go. And it has helped me so bad. I can be doing this and they'll say, what? And also delegate. I have some of my students, what I do, I say, you drop this one, I'll embellish it. Without that, you cannot achieve anything. And you are in this group, you're in this committee, they give you this assignment, give you deadline. How do you achieve it? You must delegate. Don't do it alone. Just give them the assignment. They do the draft, you embellish, you send. It might not be too perfect, there might be some mistake. Later, you can go back and correct it. So these are the things that we'll do, and it will really help us. No procrastination. Once you get your mail, reply immediately. Procrastination is a grave. These things are buried. If you procrastinate, the thing will compact. The time your head will almost, blow. So we need to do it now. Let it be slogan. Do it now. Whether it's perfect or not, do it now. Don't just procrastinate. If not, you won't achieve anything. If you do it, it means that so many women will be on the table, especially that healthy living. Some wants to do some activity, but you give them a call, China, I'm sick, my head, my migraine and all that. So we need to preach this language of teaching people what to eat. Because what they think is food is not food. Fruits and vegetables, go to the garden, sleep in the garden, smile in the garden. I mean, you are already So move. You live a successful life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Amira, I know that you have a lot of different roles. You have your lab, but you're also in a very high up, administrative position. How do you do the balancing act of running a lab, running a university, and still having time for yourself?
Yes, you are right. Actually, I cannot add a lot more than what the wonderful panelist mentioned. But for me personally, I would say that I started to say no. I started to manage my time better, maybe after joining this administrative position, because I have to follow up my research activities. I have to do lectures. I have to do administrative work in parallel. I started to organize my life. And still, I think for all of us, the panelists, we still a little bit far from controlling our stress till now. So we are giving a golden advice to the younger version of us, the audience, to start that early, because this will help them a lot, will help them to develop more skills and to be more successful, because we need to work hard but smart.
Right. I just want to add one thing, and that's my own personal story. I think that it's very important that if we have a partner in our lives, that we actually specify and really communicate with them the necessity to be partners and to understand that sometimes we have to stay in the lab late, and that sometimes we have to, give them the responsibility of feeding the kids. My husband is a fantastic cook, so he does all the cooking and the laundry. So that's really good. I clean the house and I do a lot of other things, but, just sharing the responsibility with your partner is absolutely essential. I don't think that any of us can actually move forward without that. Having said that, I want to start by basically going to the questions that we have from the audience so that we can move forward. Somebody said, what would be the most appropriate way to approach a potential mentor if one has no links to them whatsoever? Dexter?
Yes, thank you for that question. I guess then it depends. Again, if there's someone who is within your vicinity, your university, just walking up and saying, "Hi, how are you doing? My name is ABCD," and don't go all over the place. Be nice and concise. I'm interested in ABCD. I was wondering if I could work with you or something like that. Or even now, if there's somebody you see via email, you've seen what their research profile is, what they're doing, you can do a quick message. "Hi, my name is. I saw with interest the work that you are doing. I recently read a paper on ABCD concerning your lab. I was wondering if we could." And then, so the thing is just to start. I mean, there's no hard and fast way of doing it. Just go and start. Introduce yourself. And then
what if it's somebody in another country?
In my opinion, email for me. But then the thing is, when I approach that person, I must have spent some time also, doing some research concerning them, what their lab is doing. You don't want to come and look weird, like a stranger, there's a strange person who's just coming in. I know what work they're doing. I've read 1 or 2 papers that they've done. I introduce them, come from that particular perspective, and then see how it goes on. They might respond positively, they might not. But still,
right.
Scientists we can fall on our faces, but we still come up and move forward.
Yeah, so do your homework. Make sure that you research the person you want to talk to, and also make sure that you have some questions for them, and you have also a very specific objective. Why do you want to go to that person's lab, and why do you want to work with them? It's very important. I have Ralph Lino says, "My name is Ralph Lino from Malawi, and I am interested in neuroscience. However, I did my master's in crop protection, and my thesis focuses on insect behavior. I'm glad for the advice." I'm not sure what the advice is that you're asking for, Lino, but at any point in your career, you can change your mind and go into neuroscience. That's absolutely fine. Just start thinking about what you want to do and look for your mentor. And good luck to you. Welcome to neuroscience. Susan Liu says, "Thank you very much for organizing this webinar. Many thanks, and it is nice to see everyone again. This question is on mentoring. How do you not appear as a pest while trying to communicate and keep up communication or get the attention of a mentor who seems to have a very busy schedule and perhaps cannot keep up with communication at your level? Sheena?
I think everybody, as I said, there's a level you reach, you'll be too busy. Like most of the time, when I open my mail, there's too much traffic. So what you do is like, you keep on, say, gentle reminder, or I hope this mail meets you well. You keep on pushing and pushing. Even if the person doesn't answer, there's other person that will answer. Because most folks, that are that level of professors and all that, they maybe in a day, they have 1,000 mails. So it depends on who keeps on bugging them that they will listen to. So don't give up, don't throw in the towel, keep on pushing. But eventually the person said no, you say, what next? Go to another person. You keep on moving, and in the course of that, somebody will, answer you. So that's the way it goes. Sorry, my network is.
Yeah, Amira, do you have an answer for that too?
Yes, as Sheena said, just send gentle reminder from time to time and be very precise with what you ask for, and let your email be a little bit interesting to the recipient. He can read it and answer it very quickly. But it's not a problem to remind the busy persons. It's not a problem at all.
No, and also sometimes you can actually just schedule a meeting with them on a regular basis. Let's meet every 2 weeks on a Friday or a Monday or whatever time you have, but let's just have especially if you're the direct student of this person, they have to be available for you. You cannot go months and months doing research or doing whatever and not having a meeting. So, schedule something with them directly. I have Joanne Marais, who says, hello, fellow neuroscientists and enthusiasts. On the note of self-advocacy and branding, I'd like to hear your thoughts on prioritizing advocacy, allyship, and activism. It's a delicate and yet imperative topic to be outspoken on. I want to be authentic in my quest to practice justice, consider diversity, inclusion, and equity. It is not align with a particular research entity. I rather have my career stumble. We are scientists in society. Social issues are crucial to consider always, even if it has at a cost of collaboration. Is there an industry line in the sand that deters collaborators' future prospects regarding one's approach to advocacy, allyship, and activism? I think the question is basically, can you have your own personal advocacy goals and focus interfere with be a barrier for your science? What do you think?
I could speak to that.
Okay. Go ahead,
I'll try and answer it in the best way I think how. There are ways of advocating for the right thing without creating enemies out of the people you're working with. And it is actually a skill. So just to kind of help to answer the question that was asked, I would think that, first of all, choose a strategy that you're going to use. So look at your environment, what it looks like, the people you're working with, how best can you approach them regarding contentious issues that you want to advocate for. And if possible, you can seek support. So for example, the ALBA network that I was talking about earlier provides such support, provides workshops, provides seminars, webinars that train people to have discussions in a way that still keeps relationships around you healthy. So you can advocate for things without necessarily creating enemies for yourself or stumbling your career or something. And then the other thing I wanted to comment on is on the previous question, Martha, if you allow me.
Yes, please.
Mentorship, that is just, okay, I will mentor you, you will mentor me. After some time doesn't work because everybody gets busy. You get busy, your mentor gets busy, and both of you don't have anything. So the best way to approach mentorship is to structure it. Have a structured mentorship program. Say we meet after every so long, and after that long, have goals that you want to achieve. So by this time, I want us to talk about this. This is what I'm going through now. And then of course, you've got open things that you can discuss that is going on that is not structured. But I feel like mentorship programs that are structured work a lot better than just general, I will mentor you, you will mentor me, thanks.
Yeah, I think our time is up, unfortunately, so Rach.
All right. Thank you so very much. This was a rich, beautiful discussion. I wish we could meet every now and again and have discussions like this, because I'm sure all of you in the audience really agree with me that this was such a beautiful and rich discussion. Now, I would like to thank our panelists for taking the time to prepare, to present, and to share their experiences with us. Thank you so much to each one and every one of you. I would like to thank my co-chair, Martha. Thank you so much for helping with organizing the webinar and chairing the webinar. You did such a great job. I would like to thank the ALBA team, the webinar working group, specifically Mathilde, Francesca, and everybody else behind the scenes. Thank you very much for the wonderful webinar that you set up. And then the last vote of thanks goes to the different organizations that actually worked to get this to work. IBRO-ALBA-WWN-SANS, thank you all so much. You're all fantastic. Before I go, I've got to share something with you. Please don't go yet. I don't know if you can see my screen. Please confirm, Martha, if you can see my screen.
Yes.
I'd just like to promote one or two things that are coming up in the African continent that you must not miss. The first thing is we have the SONA conference, which is a gathering of all neuroscientists on the African continent, and it's happening in Johannesburg in July. And this is our beautiful venue. It's called the Indaba Hotel. Please register for SONA. Registration is open, abstract submission is open. Go to the SONA website and register for that. And when you come to SONA, please attend the SANS Symposium. It will be happening at SONA, plenty of beautiful neuroscience being shared there. And then the next thing I would like to promote is this webinar is a prelude to an in-person mentorship circle that we will be having at SONA as well. And some of the speakers that we're speaking today will be there at this workshop. So please come sign up for this workshop. Come, let's have some drinks and some bites while we're talking about all things neuroscience, mentorship, leadership. All right, and then the last thing is to thank you all for participating. Let's meet again the next time. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.